I am so happy and so tired because I spent all of my Sunday gathering all the lore from Raid Shadow Legends. I know a lot of people do an amazing job at this. For example, Layla, she is Fox Nation. She is really good at telling the lore of individual champions. Ayumi Love, thank you so much, has gathered, I believe, all, if not most, of the lore for individual champions. What I've done is I've gone through the campaign, I've gone through the individual lore of all the legendary and some of the epic champions. I might have missed a few, but I'm pretty sure it's like 99% there. So what I'm going to try and do is fill you on the geography, on the time of major events, and I know Raid is filling the gaps and enriching that lore. So this consider this a basic, right? The basic overview. And I'll do more of these lore videos to try and get you to understand what's happening in this game. And there is a story in this game. Okay. So we're going to start like the campaign map in the west. And you notice, first of all, this map really resembles like a European map. So Land of Rebirth is very much like Spain. This is the British Isles. This is France, so Kerok. Knights Templars reside here. Bannerlords are very much like the medieval France. And then we can think of Arnok as more Central Europe. And then we move across to the elves of, Eastern Europe and Middle East to the far right. What I'll do is I'll label the major champions, their events and relationships, and talk you through them. Hopefully, it's interesting, right? So, before Kerok had this medieval empire, which is currently ruled by King Tabor. Elder Skarg, it was mostly tribes. So Elder Skarg united all the barbarian tribes, and he defeated many evil tribes and tyrants. And he can be thought of as some kind of father of the Kerok Empire, so probably equivalent to Charlemagne. And then he was recruited by Arbiter to serve her. So one of the earliest recruitments by Arbiter. This then led to the medieval empire, now under King Tabor. The campaign very much starts with you trying to find why King Tabor has gone a bit mad and why he's betrayed all his allies, etc. etc. Under this, there are champions of interest. The first one is a marquis. Marquis is like a noble ruler called Corona, and he was very selfish. And Arbiter kind of cursed him into a monster until he could find compassion and true love. So he found Minea in the end, but Minea was also the love interest of Baron. And then this led to this complex triangle. We know you can read up on that love story later on. There are many knights in Bannerlords under Kerok Castle, of which Sir Killian is of interest. He was a bit of a useless page, like a servant to other knights, but he was extremely lucky and he won many fights in tournaments that were surprising victories. And he eventually, risen to a knight, and all the knights fought many campaigns against the Borderlands. The Borderlands are an area less well controlled between Arnok and Durham Forest. And here, Siroth built many powerful temples such as Nabuk, which worship him. So this is a really bad area, right? Hegemon, incidentally, leads the Knight Reverend forces. Hegemon used to be a normal human commander, possibly allied with Kerok, but he was so arrogant of his success that he eventually turned into Knight Reverend, which are like vampire forces, and then he leads now vampiric and undead armies there. So he was so devastating to the trade between Kerok, Arnok, which is a major port city, equivalent to Marseille, I would say, and then the the elven forces to the east, right? They led a joint campaign. So forces from Kerok of Bannerlords, forces from the elves, as well as Sacred Order forces, Templar forces, effectively, jointly defeated Hegemon, right? So that's how amazing Hegemon is, soloing three forces. Arnok is a port city. This is where the love story between Rotos and Siphi also occur here, right? and that's a love story. Oops, I forgot to give them a little heart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them a little heart. So I try to show that these are more love interests than, let's say, major story arcs. Okay. Brachus, incidentally, also wanders around the edge of Durham Forest. Brachus was a powerful mercenary, but he was so addicted to being more powerful, more immortal, he thought out a hermit in Durham Forest, which is a very dark and shady forest. And he eventually gave his heart and turned into this monster. And he slowly lost his human ability to think and free will, and eventually turned into a monster that just stalks this land. There are many dangerous forces that stalk this land, including Dark Elf assassins and skinwalkers. Gerb is this mysterious, Gerb Mossbeard, mysterious orc druid that protects the road around and through Durham Forest. Even though many forces from Dark Elves tried to assassinate him because he was stopping them from waylaying and ambushing travelers for their money or their lunch money, Gerb prevails and still protects pilgrims through this area. Um, Durham Forest is mainly the home of the exiled Dark Elves after the Elven Civil War. The Elven Civil War was a major civil war that fractured the Elven kingdoms, right? This is a general law, kind of in true for all High Elves, Dark Elf mythology, which is that the Dark Elves worship the dark magic of Siroth, and eventually, including Queen Eva, which was part of the campaign, led Dark Elves into Durham Forest. This includes famous Dark Elves such as Lydia, the Blood Mage, who murdered many elves and many royal guards, etc. Folly, who is a vigilante assassin. Folly is actually good. Folly doesn't worship Siroth. He was one of the first to convert from elves to dark elves, so he led that initial exile. And he now works as a vigilante to assassinate Siroth agents. There are really interesting other characters such as Hakon Smashlord. Hakon Smashlord is actually a dark elf slave, entrapped in that poverty, and basically works as a workhorse for dark elves. There is also Lanarkis. Lanarkis is actually an elven prisoner who was addicted to studying dark magic, but she wasn't bad. But she was captured when she was scouting out Durham Forest, and eventually she converted to lead one of the convents in Dark Elves. There is also a love story here between Xavier and Belenor, separated by the Civil War, and they were eventually captured and sentenced to death and rescued by Arbiter to serve Arbiter. So Arbiter is popping up around all over the map to rescue champions, right? So given the betrayal of Queen Eva, who previously led the High Elves of Aravia in the Palace of Aravia. Now it is led by Basilius Ronus, King of High Elves. The judicial system is led by Elenario, who is a judge executioner. The mages, one of the most powerful is Yannicka. They also have slaves. The High Elf slave is Ignatius. Ignatius is a slave that was eventually trained as a blacksmith. And they also have legions of royal guards. The High Elves are extremely expansional, so they're trying to expand into coastal access because High Elves are excellent trade empires. And this is where they clash with Valkyrie. Valkyrie is the queen of the Nor barbarian tribe, and she absolutely hates High Elves. And she has a famous clash with many High Elven forces in trying to establish coastal control around Tilshire. Okay, as we move up north, this is where it gets really interesting. There are roaming hordes of skinwalkers and other barbarians, of which one of the major khans or leaders is Longbeard. And then as we move further north, we get into the Winterlands. The Winterlands is a key area of control. Here we have a major clash, which is the story of Battle Pass 1 between Arbiter and her northern forces. And this includes two key characters. First is Stag Knight, who she recruited from the Bannerlords to help her in the fight in the north, as well as Pixnell, a more recent addition. Pixnell guards the most northern part of the Winterlands. She is fabled to be a former queen of the High Elves, or at least a powerful mage, and she controls the pathway into the Winterlands. Even the dwarves are very much afraid of Pixnell. Pixnell is famous for defeating a major prince of the demons, possibly Kaima, in a former ancient invasion. But currently, Siros's northern forces, converted by commanded by Werlim. Werlim was previously a servant to Arbiter until he became corrupted as a frost giant, and now he works as one of the most important commanders for Siroth. And this also clashes with at the Mountain of Despair, which is just next to the Winterlands. This is the home of the dwarves in Raid Shadow Legends. Their king is Mountain King, inspiring name, and he has legions of dwarves which fight against Siroth. They don't really fight for Arbiter, but they definitely fight against Siroth invasion. This, of course, includes Molly. She famously saved the King's Guard's lives during a major demon spawn invasion in her pub. And then this includes Trunda. Trunda is one of the strongest battlefield nukers. Her mallet is actually imbued by the tears of Siroth, so she actually wields an unholy weapon. That's why she hits so hard. And then there's, of course, the recent addition of Underpriest Brogni, as well as our famous fusion of Tormin. Tormin was actually trapped by many of the wilderness monsters such as Gurgle, and actually it was Sinig, another interesting commander or adventurer under Arbiter's influence, part of the Sacred Order, that rescued Tormin. And Arbiter has many military commanders. One of the most important ones is, of course, this chap here, Astrolon. Astrolon is a very new commander under Lumia's light. So he was forged very recently and is an angel. And he's the major war strategist and recruiter. And he fights a very long war against Countess Lix. Countess Lix, Mistress of Plague, is his counterpart, a war strategist for Mortu, the commander of all Cyril's demon forces in the east. And they fight this very long battle, and they too have a love interest. So I'm going to try and copy this little love heart here. I keep forgetting to do this. And they eventually, what happened was that Astrolon defeated Countess Lix after very, very long battles. But he fell in love with her and she fell in love with him. And he persuaded Countess Lix to join Arbiter. But eventually, because he couldn't kill Countess Lix, he was so disappointed in his betrayal of the light that he and Countess Lix both sacrificed themselves into ancient shards, or sacred shards for you to pull, which totally makes sense. Okay, going into the east, you know the campaign's final boss is Mortu Macabre. He is the commander of all eastern forces. Under him, his major lieutenant, his right hand, is Duchess. Duchess, as you know, is one of the best support champions. He also commands Kutraxa. She is a ruler of a demon plane, so she is super powerful. She is nobility in the demon world, as well as Tyrant Ixlimor, who is also the ruler of the Hellfire plane, right? And they're supported by demon champions. There is an alien demon, not of Teleria, called Candraphon. He is one of the oldest demons with an age that is unknown. He is extremely cunning and he stalks Teleria for fun, for game. And I think he's more like inspired by the film Predator. He hits extremely hard, as you know. He is also able to summon elementals. The first elemental is Inithwe. He's a void dark elemental, and he's actually the brother to Drex. Drex is a fire elemental. It is rumored that the elementals are actually not evil, they're just simply bound to Mortu's will, and if Arbiter can release them, they could fight for Arbiter. There are a number of undead forces that also pledge to Siroth. This includes Crypt King Growl, and many others. Together, their aim is to spread westwards and control key summoning points. One of the key summoning points is a great dragon shrine that can summon dragons. This is part of the ancient empire of dragons and lizardmen. Lizardmen still protect this, but they have been weakened by sequential invasions by barbarians. Krisk and Skull are the main defenders of this shrine. They were defeated by Suzy um, Catone, I think, Suzerain Catone, who led an ancient barbarian invasion. Can you imagine Suzerain Catone defeating Skull and Krisk? Anyway, and then they now still try to defend this shrine against the demon forces, which they have lost. And the demon forces was able to summon a demon dragon, which fooled many lizard men to think that this is a new lizard god. But Krisk, you know, being so smart, knows better and tries to recover that lizardman empire. In this massive wasteland, the Deadlands, and this area called Stormwind Wastelands, lies lots of empty and vacant desert land. This is where Kandra, disciples of Drake tribe, patrols this area, as well as all the orcs are here. So the orc tribes had an ancient leader called Brago, even though he was a recent champion, and he very much led the unity of the orc tribes, which is super hard, and led vicious campaigns to defeat the elven forces in orc elven wars. But every time he was very close to invading the palace of Aravia, Arbiter would come in and recruit him, which is hilarious. And then afterwards there was Grohak, the new war chief, and he also led major battles against Basilius Ronas, and every time they came close, Arbiter recruited him. There are minor orc characters. All of them have fantastic storylines, such as Tila, and she was a major treasure hunter, and Kreela, who was first a slave because her tribe died out, and then eventually, revived her tribe and gained her honor again. The Sacred Order also pops up all over the map, so they have lots of Foreign Legion kind of missions, and one of the famous ones is led by Roshad the Tower, who besieged this massive knight reverend castle called Dreadfan, and he was able to take it famously. There are also other temples such as Elagaeus, who is a blood mage that betrayed Arbiter and really produced this really big arcane explosion that wiped out the whole town and boosted a lot of energy for Siroth. So this doesn't include a lot of the famous stories about Senig and our initial starter champions traveling around the north, for example. But I will go on to these stories, the stories of our starter champions, how they interacted with both Senig, Lysandra, as well as Werlim. These stories are well known, but what I wanted to do was to show you where most of the major characters are on the map, how they relate to each other, especially the major battles such as those with Hegemon, the Winterland Wars, the wars around Mountain of Despair, as well as the Elven Civil War, the Orc-Elven Wars, as well as the Siege of Dreadfan and Dragon Temple Wars. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the history and the wide-ranging battles between Arbiter and Siroth. Siroth himself doesn't actually appear because Siroth is on the same level as Goddess of Light Lumaya, so they are above all of this, right? They're extraterrestrial gods. So back on Teleria, Earth, effectively, I look forward to expanding this and giving you more interesting stories or details of these battles. Any suggestions or comments, just leave them in the comments section. Thank you so much.